So I said, if polyethylene, that's what we're getting from the sterile water bottles and SPD and OR, and that's what we're getting from some of the products. And I said, can we shred that down and do it? So we're trying to experiment right now. We're working on a housing project right now, and we're trying to experiment with that medical waste. And if the medical waste works, it could replace the water bottles. And then Nova Scotia hospitals will just be supplying building material.
What if one conversation could save a life? What if one new process or new product could save a patient from surgical harm? Broadcasting from a hospital basement near you, you're listening to the Beyond Clean Canada podcast, the voice of medical device reprocessing from C to C to C. Each week, we spotlight the people, processes, and products from around the country and the world that are disrupting our profession and helping you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Join us as we have the kinds of conversations that matter and give our industry the kind of voice that it deserves. And now it's time to go True North strong and beyond clean.
Hi, Canada. It's your team Beyond Clean here, Barry and Stacy. We have another exciting episode with Andy Straisfeld from MIA today. He'll be talking to us about sustainability and recycling. But before we get started, a little word from our sponsors.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean Canada, the voice of sterile processing from C to C to C.
Okay, welcome, Andy.
Hello.
I haven't seen you since MDR and OR last year.
That's right. Yeah, definitely.
And then you spoke for us a couple years ago, 2019, I believe. No, I lied. It was after COVID, 2021.
That's right. I spoke twice, I think. Yes.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Andy.
Well, I'm Andy Straisfeld. I'm born and raised in Montreal. I'm a Sagittarius. I have been in the medical industry 15 years, but I was dealing with sterile processing for the last 8 years before COVID. So 2021 was my last year. I quit my job and I went into recycling of PPE. And I am the president and founder of MEA Health Corporation and Lifecycle Revive, 2 companies. And we tackle hard to process medical waste like sterile wraps and others, as well as PPE. And it's a passion of mine ever since I was a sales rep selling wrap in the Maritimes. I believe in sustainability and circular economy, and that's what we're doing right now.
Was it Halyard you were with before?
I was with Kimberly-Clark Medical, that became Halyard, they became Owens and Minor.
Yes, with Mimi. Yes, we all know.
With Mimi, that's right. Yes, we all know Mimi. Yes.
Okay, so Andy, one of our first questions, I guess we'll dive right into. So the definition of sustainability is the ability to maintain or support a process over time. Can you tell our Canadian listeners how MIA's mission and goals support this definition of sustainability?
It's an interesting concept in what people think sustainability is. And, IKEA is sustainable. A type of, a lot of plastic furniture that people are poo-pooing on is sustainable. And so is, medical waste and wrap. Like, how do I explain it much simpler than if you have something that can be reused again and again, then that's sustainable, right? So, in the case of sterile processing, when I was a rep, it was hard because I was told to sell wrap, and wrap was a one-time deal. And then containers were always our competitor. And containers are known to be sustainable because of what it was. But it's what you do afterwards with the wraps. That's what helps, right? So that's where we are now, sustainability. We take the wrappers, it's polypropylene, you shred it down, you turn it into a pellet, you turn that pellet into something else. Right now, we're turning it into plastic lumber and park benches, and now we're experimenting with tiny homes. So that's sustainable in my book. Yeah. we're working to get them nationwide. We started to have conversations with companies like Cardinal and Fisher Scientific and Canadian Tire to try to roll them out as quickly as possible. And right now, the park benches are being used to help foundations make money. Like you can take a bench, you can engrave, so-and-so family in support of this type of wing, in the name of our grandmother Ethel, right? And they can then go and shop that bench for a $5,000 donation somewhere, and that helps the foundation. The foundation then helps people in the hospital, like you guys who need to get to conferences and stuff. That money sometimes can come from foundation. So it's a sustainable product. It's a sustainable way of life.
Amazing.
Great idea, Andy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely, because there's so much waste. Because like statistics show that 30% of the healthcare waste is from plastic alone. So do you believe that there's ways in the future that we can bring that number down? Or let's say the devil's advocate, do you believe that number's higher?
I would say don't look at it as a percentage to bring up and down. Look at the type of plastic that you want to invest in. And I'll give you an example. When I started the business, we did sterile wrap, drapes, everything in the OR, right? And everything in the SPD. And Dr. Mahmoud Abbas, from a shout out to him for PVC 123, would do the anesthesiology part. Now, it is argued that my plastic, which is masks, gowns, wrap, are good plastics, the polypropylene, while the anesthesiology plastic are toxic, ABS, PVC, vinyls, right? Those are toxic plastics, right? So certain companies, like I gave my presentation, I think in 2021, I gave it at MDR and OR. There are certain companies in the anesthesiology world who are moving away from the toxic plastic and going to the good plastic. So the percentage is not the issue. It's moving to the quality of plastic. Move to a plastic that can be used and redone quickly and simply, like a polypropylene or polyethylene, right, rather than like an ABS or something like that.
Okay, can I ask you a question? What's the difference between your toxic? Is it because of the medication that touches those certain?
No.
Plastics?
When you have plastics that are toxic, it's that when you go and melt it down, it emits toxic vapors. It pollutes the land. It pollutes the air. So with other types of ethylenes, like polypropylene or ethylene, these are safer plastics because they're a derivative of something else, right? So and they can be burned, they can be melted, and with no danger, right? So
and then you turned around and used into something else, such as what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Andy, can you tell us when and how you came up with the idea for MIA?
So I was with Halyard up until COVID, March 2020, when they closed the border and we couldn't get any more supplies. And I was asked by friends and colleagues to help find stuff for the Canadian government. So I did. And while I was doing that, somebody said, "You're doing sustainable stuff with your Kimberly-Clark stuff, yeah? Like you're able to recycle masks, yeah? I said, can you sit in a government meeting?" So I sat in a government meeting, and the minister was there, Minister Champagne, and he said, "What can you do for me?" I said, "Well, you give me some money, I'll buy a machine, and I'll take care of your problems for you." And then, several months later, they cut me a check. I gave it to a bunch of partners, and they said, "Well, Andy, we can't do this without you." So the MEA was Mandeep, Eddie, and Andy. So ME went first, and they brought me in as MEA. So and then I quit my job and I went to do that, and it's been fun. It's been challenging with the plastic world, but we've been rolling with the punches, and I'm very happy with what we did. And other people are trying to copy us, but I don't think they're as successful as we are. So there we are.
But you're the goats, Andy. You're the goats. So your facility is located in Waterloo, correct?
We had a facility in Kitchener-Waterloo. That's right. And the lease was over. We moved to a bigger facility here in Brantford, where we can do more with the space that we have. And we're planning another facility in either the east, so in the Maritimes, or in BC, to create more lumber and more stuff that way out there.
That way you can collect from those facilities on each end to start turning those sustainable resources around. That's amazing. So speaking of waste when it comes to healthcare, what is your opinion on sending consumables to third world countries that cannot be used anymore because of our standards in Canada?
It's a bit of a crazy question, because they're the ones who put up the iron shield, right? Like they're the one who put up that ban, right? So they said, we don't want your garbage. But yet every day people come to see me and says, I want to buy that garbage to take it to another country. And I say, why? Because we have a shortage of that. Believe it or not, like you would figure in a country like India that has 1 billion people and has advanced medical health care, there's not enough waste for them to recycle. So they need to bring in, but we're not giving it to them because there's a ban, in Asia. So how I feel about it is that I would like us to process our own garbage here, our own recycling here, build stuff with it here, and then we'll see.
Andy, one of MIA's missions is protecting the healthcare worker. Can you give us more examples on how MIA is doing this?
My understanding is that when we looked at that at the beginning, we were in COVID at the time, and there was a big concern that we're just throwing stuff in the garbage and people were handling it, touching it. After that, there was more and more exposure to more and more dangerous stuff. And there was the red bag companies like Daniels and Sterile, who you depend on to take toxic stuff away, we're not taking it. And we then looked at what was out there and said, okay, it's not toxic. It's contaminated, but we can handle it. We can treat it. So we said, okay, instead of people touching it with their hands and having it, we created the receptacles, and the receptacles was easy to collect. And then when people were walking around the hospitals with snotty masks and whatever it is, and they were going to drop it on the ground for environmental services to pick up, we created the box system where people could just dump it in there and away you go. They would also dump garbage in there, but that's fine. And it led to the safety of plastics, right? Get the toxic plastics out and get the good plastics in.
Well, the healthcare workers, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And those boxes are still available upon request, correct?
That's right. So right now they're sold coast to coast. We have two different types of boxes. We have the front-facing box where you could put it at the front door or the nurse's station and you just dump it in. Or we have the big boxes which you can now put in the loading dock and you bring your stuff from operating room or still processing down. And it's like it holds like 400 pounds of waste and then you take it out of there, right?
And how many hospitals do you think, off the top of your head, have these boxes right now?
We had at the best of times, we had 12 hospitals, but we've been invited by HealthPro to be part of their supply chain. We've been invited by MedBuy to be part of their supply chain. So, like I said, the more we go into the buying groups, the more hospitals will expand, right? So there we are.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Sounds like your guys are growing, for sure.
Well, it's cautious growing. We don't want to grow too big because we make a mistake, it could kill the whole industry. But at the same time, we're cautiously picking up projects. So that's why hospitals call me and say, can I throw, a pipette or a pill bottle or this or that? I said, as long as it's this and that and it's not that and that, sure, no problem. And then after a while, we just say, throw everything in the bag, we'll just sort it. That was the biggest challenge. Yeah, that was the biggest challenge, yeah.
So at this point, you're just allowing them to throw whatever, and then you sort at your facility between the toxic and the non-toxics? Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you might miss the opportunity of the good sustainability things going into these boxes if people are too cautious on what can and what can't go in there. You might miss out on breaking down some things. So how much waste do you estimate MIA Health has successfully kept out of the landfills across Ontario, Andy?
As of last year's numbers, we processed and kept out of the landfill 2.9 million pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big feat. We won a couple of awards for that, so I was very happy about that.
You should.
Yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved. Yeah.
Thank you.
That is absolutely amazing.
Andy, that being said, how many different resources is MIA able to take from the hospitals? I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but maybe something too that you have your eye on for the future too?
I think in my presentations, I think we can take 95% of anything that's plastic recyclable out of the hospital. The other 5%, it's not that it's not doable. It's just maybe we don't know what it is. Like, sometimes a department is going to work on something and just doesn't recycle. They just throw it in the garbage, right? But 95% of the plastics in the hospital we could process.
Nice. Now, what was your biggest obstacles, Andy, when you were trying to develop this project? Was it more government or?
No. The challenge really came from the past mistakes that we made in Nova Scotia. I'll go quickly and explain it. Like when we were at Kimberly-Clark, we ran a program. And we had all the whole Nova Scotia hospitals. And then what happened was the garbage companies and the recycling companies in Nova Scotia killed it because they said, well, it's not under contract. And even if it's under contract, we want the contract. And then if you say, sure, we'll give you the contract, they said, well, then we don't care about recycling because we make money dumping into the garbage. So we were afraid that when we would go into the hospitals again nationwide, that we were going to deal with this type of hostility. And it started a bit, but then we quickly clamped down and said, look, you can't do anything with it. You're going to throw it in the landfill and kill the planet. And I will be the first to call the media if that's what you want. And then they backed off. And then I started doing stuff and showing that we could do stuff and process it. And now we, like I said, making a park bench, making a tiny home is a testament to what we do, right? So nobody else is doing it. So that means we're doing something right, you know?
Right. Is your tiny home contractors located in Ontario?
We have one contractor. We are actually negotiating with a pair of brothers in Nova Scotia. They actually built a house. They were on CBC News. They built a house in Nova Scotia along a river out of 600,000 water bottles. And I said to them, that's polyethylene. So I said, if polyethylene, that's what we're getting from the sterile water bottles and SPD and OR, and that's what we're getting from some of the products. And I said, can we shred that down and do it? So we're trying to experiment right now. We're working on a housing project right now, and we're trying to experiment with that medical waste. And if the medical waste works, it could replace the water bottles. And then Nova Scotia hospitals will just be supplying building material. There you go.
Wow.
You guys are changing the world.
That is absolutely
one step at a time, guys. One step at a time.
Yeah. And now the trial and error with the bottles, is that just making sure that this material will uphold weather conditions, or just figuring out how much waste you need? Because what did you say? They built it with 600,000 water bottles?
Yeah, so 600,000 water bottles made, I don't know how many slabs, but when you figure sterile wrap, because we're talking sterile processing here, I need 4 truckloads of sterile wrap to make 1 truckload of viable material, right? So that means if a truck is 40,000 pounds, I need 160,000 pounds to make a 40,000 pound truck of viable material. And then that viable, so it's a 4-to-1 ratio always, right? So that means that the machines have to be running. They just can't start and stop. So you need to have a machine running for weeks at a time. So that means I had to have millions of pounds sitting, waiting to be fed into the machine. So that's why when a hospital says, can you take enough from us? I said, no, I can't, but we will take from more in your area and we'll add to your stuff, right? And then that's it. So just keep feeding us and we'll take it. No problem.
Now all wrappers can go to you, correct?
That's correct. It's polypropylene, it's called. So it's polypropylene fibers. Yeah.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So if not for Mia, do you think you'd still be in the wrapper industry?
I think I would have still stayed in medical sales because I enjoyed, I was just sharing a story with you guys off air. And it's like, I used to enjoy going out to the Maritimes, specifically Nova Scotia, New Brunswick for because it wasn't just selling, it was meeting people and learning how to help other people. When COVID came, it just changed the whole dynamic. I actually got depressed and the recycling actually was one of the reasons that helped me pull me out of my depression, because I couldn't see you guys. I couldn't be with you guys. I couldn't help you guys. That takes a toll on a person. Really, it does. And now with recycling, although not everybody's calling me on the phone and saying, hey, I want to be part of it, I know that those who want it work with me and those who will want it will call me. So there it is.
So this is your passion. You found your passion. Yeah,
that and the smartphone wrapping when I was coaching, right? So
actually, you know what? I briefly just jumped on. So one of my fondest memories with Andy and being at the conferences with him is the competitiveness that would come from their booth with the smartphone competitions, which I don't know what you would call it, ADD expertise. I don't know. I'd be like, I don't know. That's not very neat. Andy, call that. But I just joined onto what seemed like a very interesting story of a ring that you had created.
So believe it or not, if this actually pertains to the story, I had real rings made out of silver and it's out of my pocket, right? Because, and then the same jewelry maker, I said, if I gave you the plastic pellets from shredded wrap, can you, and he made blue rings out of the stuff. And then I gave those to the managers in Nova Scotia and said, here are these reusable, recycled out of the winning wrap. So look, something, it's great to be part of the Olympics and it's great to be part of Team Canada. So for me to be the winning coach for Team Canada was great. So what I did was in the last year when we were doing this is I collected all the wraps from the Canadian wrappers in San Antonio, put them in my suitcase, brought them to this guy. I shredded them in my garage with a shredder and handed him the stuff. He melted down and he made a dozen rings out of the championship wraps that they used, right? And people look at me like I'm nut bar, but it's like at the end of the day, look, I'm proud. I'm a Canadian. I'm a patriot, and I care. And this Nova Scotia team from Dartmouth has been like the worldwide winners, right? And they were going to go up against the Europeans if it wasn't for COVID. So there we go.
And it was made out of recycled wrappers from the MDR, which,
we miss you in the Maritimes.
Yeah. How better? Now, Andy, how many employees do you have at the facility right now?
To be honest, we have downsized a bit because we're reassessing. Like if I'm going to move the company to BC or Maritimes, so what happens is we had 20 at one point. We've downsized to 5. I've trained those people to become supervisors and trainers. Depending on the next contract that comes, we'll rehire some of the people that a lot of guys keep calling me all the time saying, hey, look, I haven't found a job yet. I really want to work for you again. That's great. I love the feeling. I love the desire to be part of it. Somebody calls and say, hey, my sister-in-law worked for you and she says you're one of the greatest bosses. Can you hire me? I said, tell you what, give me a resume. I'll look for you and we'll figure it out. So yeah, now we did expand to the United States. We have a facility in Iowa.
You do? Okay.
Yes. And we're looking to fill that position soon to get a manager and a couple of staff there. And then we just moved to Brantford here in July. So we're going to settle in here and then I'll make my choice. Is it East Coast or West Coast? I'll have to figure it out.
But you will keep your facility right now in Ontario, correct?
Yeah, it's our main facility because that's where we're doing a lot of our tech work, right? Like we're like, how you do it is you recycle, then you create the equipment, then you sell the equipment, then you sell the technology internationally. So right now we've developed the machine. We're looking to go to Europe for a trade show to sell the machine, and then everyone could buy the machine, so then everybody could do it everywhere in the world, right? And one of the projects we're working on is top secret, but I'll tell you guys because I'll give you guys.
This is going to be broadcasted out.
I'm giving you guys a scoop. I'm giving you the scoop.
Okay. We're trying to. It will be the first.
You are the first. We are trying to figure out a way to put our technology onto a ship, so a ship could go out to, like, say, the Pacific Patch, like lobster fishermen, and spend like maybe 6 months in there collecting plastic, come back to port with finished product, right? And if we could do that, then we could do anything in the world, right?
So that's expanding even past the healthcare industry, because where does our waste end up? It often has a chance of ending up in that water, unfortunately, sometimes. So you're kind of...
We experimented, and I don't have it here. It's in the dining room because I had a presentation. But we are playing around with the idea of recycling nitrile gloves and turning it into footwear.
Last time,
turning it into footwear. So we were able to turn recycled gloves into a nice work boot. So
that's great.
I can send you pictures one day. So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely share that because we all know in decontam alone, the amount of gloves we go through in a day. Like you'll see your garbage can at the end of the day and it just like pains me sometimes. Like I do what I can and I put them in the recycling, but there's other people that don't.
No, I hear you.
I'm trying to do my part here.
No worries.
Andy, before we leave the studio, what advice would you like to give to all the Canadian clean freaks out there and help them fight dirty out there today?
Keep doing what you're doing. I've always been a big fan of what you do. You do make a difference not only in the hospital, in the lives of the people that you serve, but in the lives of people that you work with. Recycling is just one part of your job that you can do to help the world. If you continue, just do it diligently. Be part of any recycling program, be mine or Dr. PVC 123 or any other group. Ask questions. When somebody comes to you and says, hey, I can take away your garbage, ask the question, what are you doing with my garbage? Are you burning it? Are you shipping it? Because at the end of the day, look, designed a system in a way to make it life easier for you guys so you don't have to risk your life touching garbage and all that. In the meantime, it's a combined effort. If we can do it in the healthcare world, then it'll go into veterinary, and then it'll go to paramedicine, and it'll go to dentistry, and it will go down to allied health and long-term care. And then after that, it'll go out into the real world. It'll go into industry. It'll go into retail. And that's where we're heading, right? Like if we're going to save the world one recyclable at a time, it's going to start in healthcare and move out of healthcare.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Andy, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being a guest with Beyond Clean Canada. If anyone is to want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, first of all, I do host a podcast, so I hope to bring you guys on. There you go.
Absolutely. We would love to be guests.
So they can reach me, Andy, at Sustainably, 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 circular.com. It is the foremost podcast for sustainability and circular economy. If you want to reach me through my company, I make it simple for everybody. Andy at meahealth.ca. I'm on LinkedIn, so a lot of you have probably been reading my political points of view lately because I host a television show on politics and issues. So, and I'm getting a YouTube channel soon. So there we go.
That's amazing. We will definitely keep in touch because
all right,
we're in this together. All right. Thank you so much,
everybody,
Andy, for being a guest.
Thank you, Andy.
All right.
Cool. Thank you, Andy Straisfeld from MIA Health, for everything he's doing to help the environment and the MDR industry. Until next time, Canadian Clean Freaks, keep fighting dirty. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Clean Canada, your source for MDR content, education, and inspiration. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love to hear from you on the BCCA LinkedIn or Facebook page, or anywhere podcasts are heard. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite app. And until we talk again, keep fighting dirty.